hope, nobility, courage, generosity, mercy, justice, faith. These are the knightly virtues. The knight-errant walks a dangerous path in this world, sworn to uphold the virtues, sworn to protect the innocent, sworn to bring justice, peace, and truth to the world, sworn to stand against evil wherever it may be, especially in the depth of their own heart. The knight lacks complacency. Ever forward they walk, ever stronger they do move. In darkness, you walk through the labyrinth, and yet there is light. Draw forth the sword from your soul. I cannot give you the way. Only you can do that. But I can hold a light for you in the darkness, so that you may find your path. I cannot give you strength, but I can give you the tool to become strong. I cannot make you power, but I can show you how to attain power. I cannot unravel the mystery for you, but I can help you unravel the mystery for yourself. The knight wanders through the maze, seemingly aimlessly, befriending and helping all those around him. A champion of good, a force against evil. The knight is never complacent. The knight never gives up. And yet, when blind, anyone can stumble. In darkness, anyone can fall. Let me help you find your path through the labyrinth. Background music by Citizen XO. Brought to you by Knights of Awakening. This is the Labyrinth. Today's topic is the interview with the demon. And this is more than just a look at a conversation I had with a demon that was being channeled. I wish we actually had this on audio, but the thing is, I wouldn't subject the person who was doing the channeling to publicity. So all details of who did the channeling are going to be hidden. Not for my sake, but for theirs, because they don't want to be in the public eye on this. But regardless, I had someone I trust do some channeling. They had done some work with a personal demon. And I usually can't hear other people's demons that clearly. I get bits and pieces and I'll hear it. I'll hear a phrase here and there if I can dip deep enough in the trance, but not in a light trance. But they wanted to see what I could see of this demon. So I went into a deeper trance. I started the process of going into the transcendental state. You close your eyes, you take deep breaths, you relax, you focus. You know, it's all about relaxation. It's all about being able to focus and hone and shift that mind frame. And a lot of people make a lot more out of it than what it is. And I'll be doing another show on astral projection soon and ideas to help people get into better journeying techniques like shamanic journey. Because I really and truly think that a lot of that is the core of some of what we do. I'm not for building astral empires or things of that nature because I just don't see the point. But I am for being able to journey and to gain information and to gain understanding, especially internal journey. I think internal journey is the most overlooked art within the metaphysical community, and it's the one that needs to be looked into more. But that's neither here nor there. As I go into this transcendental state, we begin to have a conversation. And it starts with, we'll call him the subject, the channeler, just telling me where the demon is and giving me an idea of what he's saying or doing. And I can feel bits and pieces, and he would always be surprised, the demon would be surprised that I would know where he was sometimes right before the channeler would, and things of that nature. Within that, before I get into some of the details of what I learned with this interview, I want to get into the nature of spirit communications, and then channeling, and then my theory on what these things are, and then how the interview kind of confirmed that, the final proof that I needed as a practitioner to stabilize my own personal theories. And I'm bringing those personal theories here to you because I think it'll have value to some people. And some people are going to hate what I have to say. Some people are going to rile. If you are easily upset, if you take offense to one person's view of the truth in these things, you may not like what I got to say. But then again, you may not like what I got to say a lot of times. So let's continue. Spirit communications. Yeah, I got my little prompt on my side. I do everything off my big screen TV as my monitor right now because it was the most economical method of getting me all the screen space I needed to do work. And it works really well sometimes and really poorly others, but for this it does decent. The nature of spirit communications. Spirit communications are things that are felt more often than heard. When you hear, it's often your mind interpreting a feeling or sensation into words. It is a honed skill, much like projection or visualization. Visualization techniques help with it, and you have to be very grounded in who you are, what you believe, and what you think. You have to always be self-analyzing to do spirit communication safely. To some degree, you have to always be aware of who you are, because you don't want to trick yourself into thinking something said something when it didn't. It's important to have that double check, and you've got to humble yourself. And I have heard a lot over the past couple of weeks how arrogant I am from, a couple background sources, and I am in my own right. But I'm also very humble. I also recognize that I can be hurt or influenced if I am not aware. So if I am arrogant, I am arrogant in my determination to never be in a situation where I can be influenced to that degree. The nature of channeling is an extension of those communications. You move from interpreting the emotion into thoughts within the audio processors of the brain to using the vocal processors. So instead of the hearing mechanism that hears, you actually let them talk through you, and you provide a filter for what they're saying to some degree. The problem with that filter is it's going to be limited. Well, we're not ready for the theory yet, but it is a limited filter. And it's very hard to channel for most people. Most people when they channel, they lose control. I have the advantage of being trained by a man who, in his own right, was psychotic on my training, and I thank him for that. And if he's listening or watching, thank you for all the bad things we've ever said about each other in the past, or good things we've ever said about each other. You pushed me really hard to be invincible against being taken over, against being influenced. And if it wasn't for that push, I would not be able to work and do a lot of the things, a lot of the works and a lot of the things that I do. So because of the way he trained me, he forced me to confront anything and everything and to never back down, to never give power to anyone or anything else. Because of that, I suppose if all of the gods got together with all of the angels and all of the demons in every single pantheon, and they joined with the elder gods, that they would still not be able to take me over. This is my damn body and I run it. That's what I was trained to do. I was trained to have certainty of self. So because of that, when I channel, I create a small buffer that's a little bit more of a buffer than most people's, but I also can track what the being in me is doing. So at different points during this conversation with the demon, I channeled Thor because I wanted to see a god's opinion of this thing. And I knew that he would ask the questions I didn't know to. And he did at different points. I also had to pull Thor back during that channeling, kind of say, look, you are my high god in many ways. Odin may be the high god, but you're my personal, above all, deities. And I need to ask you to step back. Well, I actually need to tell you to step back because this is my body and I need to ask the next set of questions. Because at one point Thor was ready to smite this thing because it was a trickster. It was, as Thor put it, from the Lokian currents. Which, yeah, it was a being of chaos. It was Lokian in nature. But beings of chaos sometimes hit on parts of truth, and that's where we start getting into my theory on the filter, as I've expressed. My theory, which I feel I have proof enough now, after many, many experiences, is that these beings are, what we experience of them is 10% of the real being, give or take. and it's not a set percentage. But when they communicate, they're using our minds, our knowledge, our information as filters. So if you don't know that Egypt exists, they may present you images of pyramids, but they won't give you the word pyramid. They might present you an image of a dress. If you've never seen a dress, they're going to tell you it was a cloak without a hood. Things of that nature, because they have to operate through here. They have to pull information and then reestablish the communication through that. They cannot give you the name of your murderer in a past life. Well, they might be able to, because you might have access to that subconsciously. They can't give you the name of a murderer in an investigation, nor can they give you the winning lottery numbers, because you don't have access to those in here. It's just not something they can do. They have to reconstruct and rebuild their communication through your memories, but they sometimes know more than you do, and therefore it makes it very hard for them to communicate, which gets us into the interview with the demon. So as we're going back and forth, I've meditated very long times. I've meditated to a point where I'd meditated for 10 solid hours a day. I drank my tea. I've got coffee today instead, because it's been a long night. I had a lot to think about. But I had tea on hand. I allowed myself to get up and go and use the restroom and drink hot tea. And I stayed in a state of trance and meditation. I seen strange colors and I felt strange things. I felt color. And most people won't understand that unless they've done psychedelics, which I've never done. But I felt color. I heard touch. I went beyond my ability to explain the core of these senses. And the channeler had never done psychedelics, so couldn't explain a lot of it. But I grasped on the infinite for a short period of time in those meditations. I always tell people that I reached the Zen state. I reached the state of enlightenment for a moment. But whereas many people reach the state of enlightenment and they turn away and they say, it is all perfect, so therefore I should focus on letting go of suffering and worry about my suffering. I recognized that it was all perfect, but only so long as I was interacting with the rest of the world, because I could make a difference, and that I was supposed to make a difference at certain places at certain times, that I am here to make a difference, to help people, to save people, to do these things. Yeah, I know I'm wearing a big S on my chest when I say that, and I'm getting a little self-conscious. I'm going to have to get a new wardrobe at this point. I love the Superman shirts, because the idea of the character stands for something that I would like to think I kind of stand for. At least try to stand for, if I can't do better than that. So within this, I've touched on that, and I've just explained it to you, sort of, in the way that I can explain with my mind what that infinite is. The channeler had never done this at all. So I started quizzing this being, and finally, it snapped at me, and it said, of course, I understand what you're talking about, but he doesn't. And I have to present things to you through his mind. And if he doesn't understand it, I can't explain it to you fully. And I smiled. And I said, so, that really is how it works. You're not here without a body. You envy us for that to a degree. And this trickster and I had went back and forth. And he did say he envies us for having bodies and for having the permanence of this realm, because our realm is very permanent. The gate only swings one way. When we die here, we die, and we go somewhere else. We do something else. And when we live here, we live. And we have the power to make differences. We have the power to grow and ascend. Another thing he said he envied us for is that, in his claim, and he is a trickster being, so I don't know how much I take in this, because I've seen some beings ascend. Maybe just for his subset of trickster, that we could not, they, him being we as in they, ascend, and they envied us for it. They could descend and return to their own home plane. They could go to lower planes, so they couldn't go to higher. And that he envied mankind for our ability to ascend through our hard work and effort. That was useful. Him and I got into a lot of philosophical back and forths. I'm Norse. I hail the Norse pantheon. Is that fully the truth? I am Norse. And I do hail my gods frequently. In fact, just about every day. But I'm also more than that. I've touched on the truth. I know that there is the current of Thor, and then there is my understanding of that current. And within that understanding, within that undefinable knowledge of what these things are, I've recognized that mankind, in some ways, is the ultimate. We are a being that surpasses most others in most other realms, and no one wants to hear that. A lot of people like to put things above themselves, and I just don't. I can't. Because I've seen the truth, and I know how powerful you are. And if you're listening, I'm telling you, you've got more power in you than any spirit, angel, or demon ever will. And I believe that. And it's not to say that there's no point in it. In fact, if anything, this confirmed my thoughts on their power and their ability to influence and see things. Because we discussed some of the things he influenced and did or seen, either through the channeler or external. And it takes a lot out of them to do that. Another theory that got proved. But the prime theory was that they can't communicate what they don't have experience in us to communicate through. So a lot of who they are here exists based on who we are. And that they are a current, a flow, a source of information and energy, of personality, of intent and will. But this is what they are on their side of the gate, as it were. Well, on our side of the gate, they have appearance. They show themselves. In fact, at one point, he was showing himself to me as one thing and showing himself to the channeler as another. And finally, he said, well, you can't truly see me because your third eye is not fully open. I don't keep my third eye fully open all the time because I don't like to see things walking around. Partially because I've also gotten it open enough where I don't necessarily see things as what they're trying to present to me, but I see them as patterns of energy, and it gets really annoying to be walking into a room and seeing waves of force and energy moving through the room. So you learn to close a little bit of that third eye when you've done the meditations I've done for as long as I've done them. But it was good to get this confirmation, so I opened the third eye, and I could see him existing as a pattern within the room. And I called him out. I said, I can see you now. I can see you, and don't underestimate me. And he's like, well, I don't underestimate you. But you can't see. I said, you're a pattern. I stopped him right there. I said, you exist in this room as a force of energy. And he looks at me, and he got very upset. He says, well, yes, but how would he understand that? Speaking to the channeler. And I said to him, I didn't ask if he could understand it. You said I couldn't see you. And he said, well, I was wrong. I was like, yeah, you were. And deal with it. Because I am arrogant on that to a degree, too. So, my theories got proved. Again, I had this theory since the times I channeled Thor and Odin and Loki for people at different points to answer questions. Thor, Odin, and Loki could reveal information that I knew subconsciously, or they could relate through me, through experience, but they couldn't tell you things that I wouldn't have access to in the furthest point. So, for instance, I don't know how to build a car from the ground up, and Thor cannot show me how to build a car from the ground up. But he can tell me how someone's going to do after a car wreck, at least if he can see far enough. Or at least he can give me the probability, the likelihood, since time is always in motion and it can be shifted by the actions of people around him after he's told me. Same thing with tarot cards. It's the same concept. It's the flow of the universe being expressed through a physical means. We just happen to be the physical means during that channeling. They happen to be a part of that flow. And it confirmed for me that they are a flow, that they are an essence and an energy, that they aren't what they present themselves as necessarily, that the image is an image and the flow is the truth. And that's why if we summon one of the 72, one person gets one image and one gets the other, and one says that the wings are long on the demon and one says that they're short. Michael has blonde hair or black hair or red hair or green hair, or who knows when you summon the Archangel Michael. It depends on your perspective, because they've got to give you an image you can work with to interpret that flow of what they are. And finally, after multiple times working with others who channeled, working with myself, I finally got to sit down with someone whose skill level was right at the spot where I knew I could test some of these deeper understandings. and see what the demon could say. And he did try to explain the nature of the universe, to explain the depth of it that I myself have looked into, and he could not use the words, but he could go in a roundabout method. These things are egotistical. They are beings of ego. You need to understand that when working with them. If you're going to channel a demon, it's got an ego. You need to center yourself in yourself before you even consider doing this, because they are very egotistical. For this demon, because I know he'll hear the broadcast, just because that's what he does, is things. He's very entertaining. Actually, I liked him. Set the record straight. It may sound like I'm being a little mean to this demon. Actually got along with him great. He reminded me of Loki, and I like Loki in the same way that Thor likes Loki. I'd hang out with him. I'd have a beer with him. I might threaten to hit him with a hammer. But because of that, I want to make that clear as well. I got along great with this demon. I thought he was a wealth of information. I thought he was fun, funny sometimes, very tricky. He tried to put doubts in my heart, which was impossible because I've had that amazing training. I lucked out. Like I say, anything good or bad I can say about my training, I was trained to be me. I was trained to center in myself, to root myself in the truth, and to never give way. And because of that, I was able to enjoy this time with him. So I'm not saying anything bad about this demon, but he is an egotistical kind of guy. And most of these beings are, because in order for them to project into us, to communicate, or to channel, there, put that finger back in that camera, they absolutely must connect to us with their ego. They are a being of ego, and then that ego rides on our ego to communicate to and through. They are ego without form, without substance. And that's the truth of them. There's some value and some risks involved with all of this. And I think people should know the value and the risks. If you're strongly rooted in yourself, the value is phenomenal. And if you're just doing communication, the risk is marginal at best. But if you're doing full-out channeling, they can take over if you are not rooted in yourself. The value is that they will do a lot for you. They'll go upon command. They're bored. They're bored, and they exist in a realm without permanence. When do they get to do anything that means anything? Except when they're here. Okay? When they're here, it's permanent. If they drop a hand towel, it's there. It's permanent. They made a change. They drop a hand towel in the other realms, it could be there, it could be somewhere else. It could be a bird, or it could be a tree. In this permanent realm, they're able to do things, they're able to be entertained, and it is joyous for them. And most of the time, they don't care what the task is, so long as it's within line with their center. If they're a being of chaos, that means it's got to promote chaos. If they're a being of order, it's got to promote order. If they're a being of love, it's got to promote love, because that's part of their ego, and they're very, very vain on that, just as we are. We're very vain on who we are, hopefully. And that's not a bad thing. You need to have that ego. You need to be centered in yourself to do this. But you need to let go of the part of the ego that lies to you. You need to let go of the part of the ego that tells you untruths to make you feel better. Instead, you've got to root yourself in the concept of the self. And if you are, the value is you gain valuable companions, valuable familiars is the term that was used in the old Solomonic texts, to aid you in all of your tasks. You gain professionals in their areas of mysticism, in their areas of understanding. You gain the best of the best if you're rooted in yourself when you communicate, when you work with them. If you're not, what you gain is a being that is comprised of ego that has not had a chance, probably in a very long time, to make a day-to-day impact or to live in a body. And they may try to for a little bit, and you may have to fight them back out. You may get into a bad situation like that. You need to be rooted in yourself before you do this. I highly recommend that anyone, before they start to try to channel a demon or anything else, angel, demon, God, I don't care really, I highly recommend they be able to meditate in a state of zazen or a state of sheer focus. Qigong breathing is fine. Something. where you can hold your focus for 30 minutes. If they can't do that, they are not ready to work with this being, and it will have a chance to take them over. And that's the minimum. That's the minimum. I could take you through my training regimen that I had to go through, and you would shed tears of blood over what I had to go through. So that's the value in the risks. This is what it was like to interview a demon, to talk to it, to pick its brain, to get some ideas. And I learned a lot. I learned about the nature of the universe and the nature of their existence within their plane and how they influence ours. A lot of people won't like my explanation. A lot of people aren't going to like what I got to say. But it's my experience. And I always invite people to write us in and contact us. Leave a comment what your experiences are like, how they differ. More than glad to accept criticism in this. I don't know it all. Not by far. But I can tell you what I've been through and what I've learned and how it affects me in my practice. And I think that means something. If you're watching this, it probably means something. And obviously, you feel some connection to me and how I do things. So I think that's a good thing. I want to thank you for joining us for this. This has been an interesting topic. If I've ever had a topic where I used my headers in my little window to the side less, then I don't know what it was, other than the ones where I run without headers at all. Because there was so much to discuss that I had already kind of went over in my head how I wanted to express this. So I wanted to thank you. I know there was a whole lot of information here. Thank you for joining us today. I want to remind you to like, share, and subscribe. Get the word out. Let people know about Nights of Awakening. Let them know about the Labyrinth. Let them know about the groups that you're in that share this information. Because the thing is, this only benefits the world if it gets out and people know about it in their practice. And that's what I want to see. I want to see every mystic rise above wherever they're at. And that means if you're at the top, I want you to find a new limit. And if you're in the medium, I want you to hit the top. And if you're at the low, I want you to hit the top. That's it. That's my goal with the Labyrinth, is to help. It's to teach. It's to give back somewhat to the communities that I've been a part of. And I thank you for the opportunity to do that, because that is how I awaken the night within.